Back in 2007, I was 19 years old and living in a small town in eastern Oklahoma. I was attending community college during the week and working part-time at a hardware store to help cover expenses. Life was pretty simple back then. Most weekends were spent hanging out with friends, driving around country roads, or finding any excuse to get out of town for a few hours. One Friday evening after work, my friend Tyler called me. He had recently moved into a rental house about an hour away and was having a few people over. I hadn't seen him in a while, so I decided to make the drive.
The night was nothing special. Just a bunch of friends sitting around a fire in the backyard, listening to music, joking around, and talking about whatever came to mind. It was one of those nights that felt completely normal. Around 2 a.m, everyone started winding down. A few people had already fallen asleep on couches and recliners. Tyler told me I could stay the night, but I had an early shift at work the next morning and wanted to sleep in my own bed. I said goodbye and started the drive home. The roads were almost completely empty. The first half hour passed without a problem. I barely saw another vehicle. The farther I got from town, the darker everything became. There were no street lights, no gas stations, and no houses visible from the highway. Just miles of woods and open land.
I remember turning up the radio to stay awake. Then suddenly the music cut out. A second later, the dashboard lights flickered. The engine lost power. My stomach dropped. The car rolled forward for a few seconds before the engine completely died. I managed to steer onto the shoulder and came to a stop. At first, I thought maybe I had somehow run out of gas, even though I knew I had filled up earlier that day. I tried starting the car again. Nothing. Not even a click. I tried again. Still nothing. I sat there staring at the steering wheel for a moment, hoping it was some simple problem that would magically fix itself. It didn't. I grabbed my phone and checked for service. 1 bar. I tried calling my parents. The call failed. I tried Tyler. Same thing. Even my text messages wouldn't send. I remember leaning back in my seat and thinking how ridiculous the situation was. Here I was, stuck on the side of a highway in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m. At first, I figured someone would drive by soon. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. Only 2 vehicles came down the highway during that entire time, and both flew past without slowing down. Eventually, I gave up trying to flag people down. I locked the doors, reclined my seat slightly, and decided I would just wait until sunrise. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I remember was being startled awake by bright lights shining through my rear window. A vehicle had pulled in behind me. For the first time all night, I actually felt relieved. I looked into the mirror. It was an older pickup truck. The headlights stayed on for several seconds before switching off. I waited for someone to get out. Nothing happened. The truck just sat there. A minute passed. Then another. Still nobody got out. The whole thing felt strange. Finally, the driver's door opened. A man stepped out and started walking toward my car. Even in the dark, I could tell he was a big guy. Tall, broad shoulders, heavy build. When he reached my window, he smiled and knocked on the glass. I cracked the window slightly. "You having car trouble?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. He nodded. "Thought so." For a few seconds, he just stood there looking at me.
Then he asked if I was alone. The question immediately made me uncomfortable. I don't know why. Maybe it was the way he asked it. Maybe it was the fact that we were alone on an empty highway in the middle of the night. Whatever it was, something felt off. I lied and told him my brother was on his way. The man looked down the road, then back at me. How far away is he? I shrugged. It shouldn't be long. The smile on his face seemed to fade a little. Then he pointed back toward his truck. I've got some jumper cables. Come help me grab them. At first that sounded reasonable. But when I looked toward his truck, I noticed something. The passenger door was slightly open. And I could have sworn I saw movement inside. Like somebody had shifted in their seat. I stared for a second. Then I saw it again. There was definitely someone else in that truck. My heart immediately started pounding. Maybe it was completely innocent. Maybe it wasn't. But suddenly every instinct I had was telling me not to get out of the car. I told him I wanted to try starting it one more time first. Then I rolled the window up. The man didn't move. He just stood there, watching me. His expression had completely changed. There was no smile anymore, no friendliness, just a blank stare. After a few seconds, he turned and walked back toward his truck. I remember feeling slightly relieved. Then I watched him climb into the truck bed. He started moving things around. A moment later, I saw something long and metallic catch the moonlight. It looked like a heavy chain. That's when panic hit me. I don't know why. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I wasn't. But every part of me was screaming that I needed to leave. Immediately. I grabbed my backpack, unlocked the passenger door, and jumped out. The second my feet hit the ground, I started running toward the woods. Behind me, I heard yelling. Then I heard footsteps. Fast footsteps. The man was chasing me. I ran as hard as I could. Branches hit my face. Roots nearly tripped me. I didn't look back. I just kept running. The woods were thick enough that after a few minutes, I could no longer hear the highway. I finally dropped behind a large fallen tree and listened. At first, I could still hear movement. Footsteps. Branches snapping. Then, everything went quiet. I stayed exactly where I was. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Maybe longer. Every time I thought about moving, I imagined hearing footsteps again. So I stayed hidden. The temperature dropped as the night went on. I was cold, tired, and completely terrified. A few times I thought I heard voices in the distance. Once, I thought I saw a flashlight moving through the trees.
Whether I actually did or not, I honestly can't say. I just remember being too scared to move. Eventually, the sky started getting lighter. The sun wasn't up yet, but dawn was approaching. After convincing myself it was finally safe, I carefully made my way back toward the highway. When I reached the road, the pickup truck was gone. My car was still there, but both doors were open. The contents of my glove compartment had been dumped onto the seats. My backpack was gone. So was my jacket. They hadn't taken much, but they had definitely gone through everything. I stood there for a few minutes trying to make sense of it all. About half an hour later, an older man driving a farm truck stopped and asked if I needed help. I explained that my car had died. He offered to take me to a nearby gas station where I could call for assistance. A mechanic eventually came out and discovered that one of my battery cables had come loose. That was it. A 5-minute repair.
As I drove home later that morning, I couldn't stop thinking about the night before. Maybe those men only wanted money. Maybe they planned to steal my car. Or maybe it was something much worse. I'll never know. What I do know is that every bad feeling I had that night turned out to be right. And if I had walked over to that truck when that man asked me to, I honestly don't know what would have happened. But after everything that followed, I'm glad I never found out.